Vatican and World News.
A new papal journey is announced. Pope Francis is to visit the United Arab Emirates in February to participate in an interfaith meeting. Ukraine calls for a ramping up of sanctions against Russia, and the bishops of Ireland conclude their winter general meeting following discussions on Brexit and the recent abortion referendum. In the Vatican, I'm Lydia O'Kane. Staying with news from the Vatican, and Pope Francis today met with Mercedarian Fathers from the Order of the Blessed Virgin Mary of Mercy, which was established for the redemption of Christian captives. In his address, he urged them never to stop being instruments of freedom, joy and hope. Francesca Merlo has the details.
Pope Francis on Thursday met with Mercedarian Fathers who are celebrating 800 years since the foundation of their order. The Pope addresses the Fathers, saying that first of all, he wishes to put before their eyes that first love with which you express the vow of redemption. The Pope reminds the Fathers that following Christ means giving life in order to save souls, and goes on to say that we all know the importance of following Christ, although at times, rather than follow him, we approach our lives as though he were the one who has to follow us. Those who follow Christ, the Pope continues, do so by giving life. This, the Pope says, puts us before the central truth of our religious consecration. The Pope goes on to say that trusting in the Lord means to surrender ourselves to him without reserve, and explains that the surrender of one's life is not optional, but is a consequence of a heart that has been touched by the love of God. Please, the Pope continues, I ask you not to allow yourselves to be dragged along by the temptation to regard your sacrifice and your dedication as an investment for personal gain. Today, continues the Pope, as in other eras of history, the Christian is threatened by this triple enemy, the world, the devil, and the flesh. Though they are often camouflaged, their consequences are evident. They numb the consciousness and cause a spiritual paralysis that leads to inner death, says the Pope. Pope Francis then goes on to tell the Mercedarian Fathers that as members of a redeeming order, they must first experience in themselves the redemption of Christ, and he invites them to continue to be bearers of the Lord's redemption to prisoners, refugees and migrants, to those who fall into the trap of human trafficking, to vulnerable adults, to orphaned and exploited children, and bring God's tenderness and mercy to all who are discarded by society. Finally, the Pope urges them never to grow tired of being instruments of freedom, of joy and of hope. I'm Francesca Merlo.
Well, that brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. For more on these and other stories, be sure to visit our web portal at www.vaticannews.va. You can also like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. In the Vatican, thank you for joining us.